Hi Anushka, welcome to NDTV.
Thank you so much.
So I saw the new song from your new music album, Chapter One, Forever for Now, and the video shows your children running around while you're playing a sitar, and it looks so beautiful. Motherhood, how it has, how life is as a mother while playing a sitar, being a musician. Tell me a little more about the video and why did you choose to make it in such a way?
The first song that came to my mind came about an afternoon in the garden with the kids, and what it was more about was a deeper, larger process of what it is to be a human, and by that token, what it is to be a mother. But it applies in all human senses, to tap into strength, to tap into tenderness, how to be there for other people, how to stay strong yourself, how to help heal others, help others. I feel like there was so much that's been going on in recent years, but on the global and on the personal side, that felt like something I really wanted to put into my music was that tenderness within strength, which sure is very connected to motherhood, but is also so essential in our world. We all need to stay connected to our tenderness while we're being strong. Otherwise, we harden up to our humanity and to other people. So yeah, I just wanted to make music that helped evoke that feeling for myself and for the listeners as well.
Anushka, I'm a mother of a 4-year-old and I completely relate to that video while I am working and she's around me, sleeping on my lap. Uh, but tell me, how has motherhood changed the way you make music?
My music has become simpler and more vulnerable, more emotional. Um, I think the way I speak through my instrument has been more truthful. All of that has happened since I became a mother. I don't know if it's all because I became a mother, because I'm also a woman and a human who's been continually growing and expanding. So I know who I am now better than I did, when I was in my 20s. So I think motherhood is a key part of what's cracked me open and helped me grow to those spaces. But I think it's also just the individuality of womanhood as well.
Let's go back to your childhood. Being a daughter of a celebrated sitar player, you had music all around you when you were growing up. Uh, because of that, was it a given that you will choose music as your profession?
So there was definitely a lot of pressure to play and to learn, even if it wasn't like awful pressure. Like if I had really fought and said I want to stop, I'm sure they would have let me stop. But I could feel the desire, I could feel the hope and the expectation. So I never felt able to stop. So as a kid and as a teenager, even when I would have my doubts, I would keep going. So I think in a way the blessing is that I kept on playing and I kept deepening into that practice. So what happened is I slowly fell in love with it more and more. And as you say, that atmosphere of hearing music and being around music all the time, that is as much or more than the learning, because I just grew up familiar with it. I grew up loving it. I think it's so important for kids and young people to have that exposure to all art forms because you never know what might happen. So I was very lucky to have that. And then of course I had my training with my father. So it took me until I was out of high school, really. Like by the time I was 17, 18, then I felt pretty sure that I was ready to take on, the potential pressure of performing his instrument professionally.
Tell me, if you were not a musician or didn't choose this as your career, what else would you be? Like, what was the alternative for this?
I thrive in group collaborative settings. So as a musician, I love collaboration. So outside of sitar, I would compose, I would play piano. But I think I would do really well in some kind of therapeutic world, like some kind of either being a psychotherapist or a psychodynamic therapist. I love that world very much. But even though it's more solitary, I love writing as well. Like I've always loved the written word. And that would be an option. Yeah.
Anushka, you're coming back to India and you'll be touring all over India. But you stay away from India and you have stayed different places all over the world. But how do you stay rooted? How do you stay connected to your motherland?
It's really hard to explain that one because it shifts for me as well. I stay connected to my roots by trusting that my roots are there no matter what. Like I'm always going to be from India, whether one person goes, "Oh, she's not Indian because she lives abroad," or "Oh, she's disconnected." People have different opinions on how Indian we are, and I know I'm Indian. I know I was, born of Indian heritage and born to the culture and the music and the form, that makes me really connected to my roots. Outside of that, I probably feel like I go more and less in touch with what's current in India, depending on how often I'm coming back. But I try and stay in touch with like artist friends and know what's going on and what's happening. And yeah, we'll see.
In earlier days, we used to talk about sitar and used to connect to only that kind of music or classical music that only elderly people would like, not the young generation, especially not the Gen Z. But here you are going to be performing Lollapalooza, and there's a different kind of crowd, the young crowd who is really enjoying your music. So I wanted to know, how are you bridging this gap and keeping your music relatable?
I've been very lucky so far. I try and just be led by my own heart and my own intuition. All I can do is play the music that's in my heart. Like I have to make the music that I envision and trust that there will be an audience for that. By nature, the music I make is not classical. It might be informed by classical music, but it's not classical. So it exists in a space that's quite unusual between worlds, between genre. And that's something that different generations connect to because all of our worlds are so multicultural, so split between worlds. So that connect happens. A lot of the older people maybe like the tastefulness in the way I do my crossover work, that I'm still very respectful of the root. But I also don't think playing at different venues means you get to play the same music for different people. So, sometimes some people would want to sit down in a concert hall and focus quietly. Other people want to listen and dance and move freely. And, and that variety, I try and keep continually play in different types of venues. And that makes a really big difference to who feels able to come and listen.
I'm a film journalist here in Mumbai, and what we don't see is a lot of women as music composers. Why do you think that's happening? Why don't we see women coming out more in numbers as music composers?
Patriarchy, sexism, status quo, laziness, fear, all the usual things that impact the same problem across every industry. It takes a little bit of extra effort and willingness to notice the lack of diversity and correct it. And a lot of people are just comfortable with the way things are, So it takes, drumming the beat, it takes making the noise, it takes pushing, but it takes all the people in power being willing to give other people that platform as well. I've been touring for 28 years. I've been composing music for almost 20 years. I'm not there being offered lots and lots of film scores either, so if I'm not getting who else is getting, it's really difficult, I think. So yeah, it definitely needs to be corrected. And I've actually been thinking that maybe there's some kind of coalition or collective or something that we need to create to help support that.
I completely agree with you. I think you should start doing this.
It's working in my head this week, actually. So it's interesting you brought that up. Thanks for the push.
Last question, Anoushka. Sitar playing is a legacy that you have carried on from your father. But how do you plan to pass it on? Because it's not a given that because you have two children, they have to be sitar players. But how do we make sure that we hold on to this culture and heritage and music of ours? Uh, how are you planning to do that?
I've started teaching in the last few years. I have a very small amount of students because my focus is still touring and also parenting as a single parent. So the space for students is small, but I am teaching. Alongside that, continuing to play, continuing to make work available that people can hear and listen to. But I think, creating opportunities like you talked about for other people to learn, to make it feel accessible so that they can take it on. All of that really makes a big difference and is essential, really.
Thank you so much, Anoushka. It was lovely talking to you, and I cannot wait to meet you.
Okay, let's make it happen. Thank you so much.